Hi, and welcome to this webinar on menopause. I am Claire Lovin of Claire Lovin Personal Training, and 20 minutes from now, I hope for you to leave your computer screen having the confidence to take control of your health, knowing that you can still be energetic, strong, and live your best life through midlife and beyond. So around 4 years ago, I started to notice changes in my mood and behaviour. I had this irrational irritability. I remember feeling wild with rage when my 4-year-old took his time getting into the car seat. Like, it used to send me absolutely up the wall. I was habitually forgetting things like my purse and my keys when I went shopping. I never knew where I'd left my phone or my glasses. I would put the dinner in the oven, set the timer, and only to find the dinner still sat raw on the kitchen side when the alarm sounded. I was tearful at everything on the television. My sleep had deteriorated, and I just felt confused, embarrassed, and a bit lost. So I went to my GP, and she told me I was probably in perimenopause, and I had mild depression, which is one of the effects. I was 44, a mother to a 4 and a 6-year-old. And although in my head I was still 27, I was just left wondering, how did I get here? So it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not expecting this. I'd never even contemplated it, to be honest. Menopause was never discussed with my friends. Although growing up, I was aware my own mother had struggled with menopause. It was never really discussed openly within the family, and it was all kept as a bit of a secret. So as a coach, it's my job to empower women to take control of their mental and physical health. I give them the knowledge and the tools to deal with physical and mental challenges that they face. But I was not equipped to deal with this. I was absolutely clueless. So I have since spent this time reading, researching, and talking to women about their menopause experiences, alongside living with some of the effects of it myself. So I really feel we need to have the conversations that no one feels they can talk about. So when the time comes, we are prepared and ready and can embrace the challenges that we might face. So let's talk about menopause. So think about all the women in your life: mums, daughters, sisters, cousins, nieces, aunts, friends, neighbours, and colleagues. The one thing they all have in common is that they will all experience menopause. So not all women get to experience pregnancy, childbirth, or parenting, but all women, if they live long enough, will experience the transition of menopause. So why is it so difficult to talk about? If this is to happen to 50% of the population, why is it still too taboo to discuss? The average age for a woman to be in menopause is 51, and by the age of 54, 80% of us will have reached that stage. The effects of menopause last on average 7 years post-menopause, but can continue for up to 12 years after our periods have stopped. So we need to consider now what we eat and how we move to preserve heart health and bone health. Perimenopause can start 5 to 10 years before the menopause. A woman in her early 40s can start to experience changes in her body which she doesn't quite understand. She might start to get hot flashes, insomnia, anxiety, and night sweats, along with many other effects. Her confidence in her abilities might be affected, and her usual coping strategies to deal with these added stresses might not be the best choices for her. For some women, this transition can occur much earlier on in life. For women who experience menopause before 45, we call this early menopause. And there are some women who are younger than 40 who transition, and this is known as premature ovarian insufficiency. Although most women will transition through menopause naturally, others have to cope with medically or surgically induced menopause. When a woman's periods have stopped for 12 months, she is now post-menopause, where she will remain for the rest of her life. For many of us, depression or the feeling of sadness can leave us feeling frightened or unable to cope. Being unable to concentrate, forgetting things, being upset over minor things can leave us feeling like we're stupid or even going crazy. Some women have described the mood swings left them feeling like Jekyll and Hyde, and in many cases it's not just the women going through menopause who has to manage the effects of it. Those close to her will also notice the effects too. So we can experience 34 different effects of menopause. These are effects, not symptoms. Menopause is not a disease. But by being mindful of our language that avoids medicalising the natural transition, we can understand the actions we can take to manage our own menopausal journey. Some of us will glide through menopause with virtually no effects at all. Some of us will experience many effects, and some of us might only experience one or two, but they might be really, really intense. Of the 34 recognised effects, the ones in blue will respond to what we eat and how we move. So knowing the effects that you may experience during this change in your life will not only provide you with reassurance, but allow you to make adjustments so you can give your body and your mind what it needs. So hot flashes are the most common effect of menopause. But why is that? Why does controlling our body temperature become difficult? Our neuroendocrine system includes our ovaries and our brains. So our brains talk to our ovaries and our ovaries talk back to our brain. Estrogen is key for energy production in the brain, and as we transition through menopause, estrogen declines quite quickly. The part of the brain which regulates body temperature, the hypothalamus, then doesn't regulate correctly, and the brain struggles to control body temperature. So hot flashes can really affect a woman's intention to exercise. She might feel that exercise will bring on more hot flashes, or might want to avoid areas where she's in large groups in case a hot flash takes over at the time. But effects such as fatigue, difficulty concentrating, sleep disorders, weight gain, depression, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, panic disorder, osteoporosis, joint pain, muscle tension, dizziness, incontinence, bloating, irregular heartbeat, digestive problems can all be influenced directly from what we eat and how we move. During and post-menopause, a woman's risk of cardiovascular heart disease rises, and this is thought to be partially attributed to the lower estrogen levels produced, which are thought to have a positive effect on the inner layer of the artery walls. We may also see increased blood pressure and a rise in cholesterol. Other factors might be caused by unhealthy habits eventually catching up with her. So what we eat and how we move can have a marked effect on these risks to our health. Peak bone mass is reached around the age of 30, and women can lose 20% of their bone density in the 5 to 7 years after menopause. And this is because estrogen influences the bone's ability to absorb calcium for bone formation. The risk of osteoporosis and related bone diseases are thought to remain low until we're much older, but taking action before and during menopause to preserve bone health pays dividends. Unfortunately, fractures are the best predictor of future fractures and potentially can be the sign that something's wrong with the woman's bone health. Sedentary living increases the risk of bone issues, as does being overweight. So what we eat and how we move can hugely offset this decline. Urogenitary issues can arise during the menopause transition, such as vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, pain during sex, and the loss of libido are all common effects due to the change of hormone levels. And while these won't directly impact our ability to exercise, it can affect our motivation to exercise and our confidence in how we feel. Pelvic floor issues, including incontinence and/or prolapse, can also arise. On average, women wait for more than 6 years to seek help for these issues. So if 6 years is the average, then there are women who are waiting much, much longer than that. Pelvic floor issues can also cause constant lower back pain, and often we find women who suffer from this with no obvious cause will suffer with pelvic floor dysfunction. And this can also affect a woman's confidence and her intention to be active. Perimenopause and beyond can be an intensely stressful time for women. Our caring roles can expand with children, teenagers, or looking after our parents or even grandchildren. Managing our time and energy can be stressful, and stress can heighten some of the effects of menopause, such as hot flashes. In fact, the stress hormone cortisol sits in balance with estrogen. So when estrogen goes up, cortisol comes down, and when cortisol goes up, estrogen comes down. Stress also influences what we eat and how we move, and ultimately can affect our body composition. But does menopause cause us to gain weight? A UK study in 2011 shows that 61% of premenopause or perimenopause women were overweight, compared to 69% of postmenopausal women who were overweight. But is that down to menopause or just aging by itself? Other studies show that this is not the case. While the research is inconclusive, we do know that menopause leads to decreased fat-free mass and reduced physical activity levels. So what should we eat? There are many diets out there, but in particular, the Mediterranean diet has been shown to be beneficial to women's health. And this is due to the body's response to plant phytoestrogens, which the Mediterranean diet is high in, and this includes flax seeds, sesame seeds, peaches, garlic, green leafy veg, nuts, and it's thought that these phytoestrogens naturally support women's health. And the best news of all is that phytoestrogens are also present in chocolate. But what can we adhere to? Even a diet that is based around whole foods and minimally processed foods is beneficial. When we think about bone health, the first nutrient that usually comes to mind is calcium. And calcium is found in dairy products, green leafy veg, products made with fortified flour, and fish where you eat the bones, such as sardines and pilchards. But it's not just about calcium. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium. Dietary sources of vitamin D include oily fish, eggs, red meat, and foods fortified in vitamin D. Our primary source of vitamin D, though, is in fact the sun, of which we have really not seen so much lately, although it is getting a little better. So if you live in the northern hemisphere, taking a supplement of vitamin D of at least 10 micrograms daily from October to March might be worth considering. In supporting bone health, we must also consider muscle mass. Peak muscle mass for women is around the age of 30. And this declines around 1% every year. There's even a sharper decline of muscle mass post-menopause due to the impact of lower estrogen, and this can result in sarcopenia, which is muscle wastage in old age. It seems that physical inactivity and protein intake contribute mostly to sarcopenia in menopausal women. So a diet high in protein can assist in maintaining muscle mass. And the good news is that higher doses of essential amino acids found in protein stimulate muscle protein synthesis in older women to the same extent as younger ones. So considerations need to be given to the quality of the protein source and the amount, but eating a source of protein at every meal would be a really good starting point. So what we eat also impacts our pelvic floor health. Constipation has an effect on the strength and reliance of the pelvic floor. Having enough fibre in our diets to support bowel movements from foods such as oats, fruits, root vegetables and linseed can alleviate constipation. Caffeine is both a bladder and a bowel irritant and may be a factor for those of us who experience pelvic floor issues. Hydration is important in reducing constipation, but we don't want to drink more in case we leak, right? Yet dehydration can increase the heart rate, make exercise feel harder, reduce skin blood flow, increase body core temperature, and decrease cognitive function. You know, that cloudy brain feeling. And it can also be attributed to headaches. So notice the correlation of dehydration and the 34 recognised effects of menopause. The effects of alcohol show that stress and the perception of stress can be heightened, as can anxiety during the transition. If your stress response is to open a bottle of wine when you get in from work, then this is something that you might want to reconsider. So what we eat and drink can really impact the effects of menopause. And so can how we move. So to improve our heart health, the World Health Organization recommends 150 minutes of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week, plus an accumulation of 1 hour of strength training per week. To improve bone health, combining strength training with weight bearing or high impact exercise can have a significant positive effect on bone mineral density. I'm a huge advocate of women lifting weights, and despite their fears, none of my clients or myself have actually ended up with muscles as big as Arnold Schwarzenegger's, although I am trying. However, their confidence has grown. They all have seen improved body composition, better posture, and none of my women will be succumbing to sarcopenia or decreased bone density, not anytime soon. Activities that include challenging your balance, such as yoga, Pilates and Tai Chi, can help you strengthen your deep postural muscles, decreasing the risk of falls in older age. And as a Pilates teacher myself, I also know that this kind of activity can help you manage stress, as well as give you better joint mobility and a stronger core. But what activities do you enjoy? What can you do to reduce stress and be more physically active? It's not all about gym sessions. A study from the British Medical Journal in 2012 estimated that reducing excessive sitting to less than 3 hours a day and excessive TV watching to less than 2 hours per day resulted in gains of life expectancy of 2 and 1.4 years respectively. So we need to switch off Netflix. It's even been reported that even 15 minutes of daily exercise, which is half the minimal daily guideline recommendation, is associated with a significant risk of cardiovascular disease risk. So these findings support the guidelines that some physical activity is better than none. And these are just a few things that we can do to support our health through menopause and beyond. The important thing here is that we talk about it. We must have the conversations, not just with our sisters and our friends, but with our colleagues, our husbands or wives, our neighbours, our children. As with all behaviour change principles, take habit changes one at a time to avoid being overwhelmed. Make small tweaks to your lifestyle if needed. Remember, even taking the smallest of actions to improve our lifestyle and health behaviours are always better than no action. A 5-minute walk is better than no walk. Adding 1 portion of vegetables to a meal is better than no vegetables at all. A 3-minute deep breathing exercise will have a bigger positive impact on your stress levels than 3 glasses of wine. And an attitude of always something will always trump an attitude of all or nothing. So thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions about women's health, please put them in the chat box. Alternatively, you can message me. Remember, if you are really struggling, then always seek help and support from your GP. Thanks for watching.